Good afternoon, doctor. I must confess the bureaucracy of wellness is almost as draining as the illness itself.
I hear that quite often. We require patients to be at their most organized when they are physically at their least capable.
Precisely. I've spent the last 20 minutes navigating a digital intake form that seemed determined to reject my existence.
Our systems can be somewhat temperamental, especially on a Monday afternoon when the server is overloaded.
It kept timing out while I was trying to articulate the nuances of a persistent, rather insidious cough.
I appreciate your patience. It's a necessary hurdle to ensure we have a comprehensive overview of your clinical history.
I suppose I should be grateful for the thoroughness, even if it feels a bit like a technological interrogation.
Think of it as the foundation of our conversation. Now tell me, what finally brought you through these doors today?
It's a combination of things, really. A lingering fatigue that I can't seem to shake off regardless of how much I sleep.
Fatigue is a remarkably broad symptom. Is it a general lethargy, or does it feel more systemic and heavy?
It feels heavy, as if my body has decided to move through water while the rest of the world is on dry land.
That's a very vivid description. And the cough you mentioned on the form, has that been persistent as well?
It's been bothering me for about 10 days, though I've been trying to convince myself it was just seasonal allergies.
10 days is a significant window for a cough to remain unchecked without any signs of improvement.
I know. I'm guilty of that particular brand of stoicism that borders on professional negligence toward oneself.
Many people treat their health as an inconvenience to be managed rather than a priority to be nurtured.
That's exactly it. I felt as though being unwell was a personal failure, or at least a massive disruption to my schedule.
Yet here you are, which suggests the disruption finally became too significant to ignore any longer.
My chest felt tight this morning, not dramatically so, but enough to make me feel a sudden, sharp spike of apprehension.
Physical signals have a way of demanding our attention when our logic tries to dismiss them.
I suppose I'm finally ready to admit that my wait-and-see strategy has officially failed me.
Failure is a harsh word. Let's just say your body has reached the limit of its self-regulatory capacity.
That sounds much more clinical and far less judgmental than the voice inside my own head.
Let's look at the specifics. Have you noticed any particular patterns to this chest tightness or the fatigue?
It seems to intensify in the late afternoon, right around the time my cognitive load is at its peak.
Stress can certainly exacerbate underlying physiological issues, though it is rarely the sole architect of them.
I've also been experiencing these intermittent headaches, not migraines, but a dull, pressurized sensation behind my eyes.
Are these accompanied by any visual disturbances or a sensitivity to the fluorescent lighting we were discussing?
Only when I'm staring at a screen for extended periods, which unfortunately is my primary occupation.
We live in an era that is fundamentally hostile to the human nervous system, Sarah.
It feels that way. The constant connectivity makes it almost impossible to truly disconnect for the sake of recovery.
And yet the body keeps a very meticulous tally of the rest we owe it.
I suspect I'm quite heavily in debt in that regard. My sleep has been fragmented at best lately.
Fragmented sleep is often a precursor to a compromised immune response. Do you find it difficult to fall asleep?
Falling asleep isn't the issue. It's the waking up at 3 in the morning with a mind that refuses to remain silent.
The classic middle-of-the-night rumination. It's often a sign that your cortisol levels are somewhat dysregulated.
Is that something we can address, or am I destined to be an insomniac philosopher for the foreseeable future?
Everything is addressable once we have identified the root cause. I'd like to check your vitals before we proceed.
Of course. I apologize if my heart rate is slightly elevated. Medical environments always make me a bit twitchy.
That's a very common phenomenon. We call it white coat syndrome, though it applies even without the coat.
It's the loss of autonomy, I think. Being a patient feels like being placed on a conveyor belt of examinations.
It can feel impersonal, certainly. My goal is to ensure you feel like a participant in this process, not just a subject.
I appreciate that. Most of my previous experiences have felt more like a transaction than a consultation.
Medicine should always be a dialogue. Your subjective experience is just as vital as the data from a blood test.
That's a refreshing perspective. Usually, I feel I have to justify my symptoms to be taken seriously.
You shouldn't have to audit your own pain for my benefit. If you say you're unwell, that is my starting point.
I've been avoiding this visit because I was terrified you'd find something that has a frightening name.
A name can be a source of fear, but it is also the first step toward a concrete solution.
But as long as it remains nameless, I can pretend it's just a temporary dip in my usual resilience.
Ambiguity is a heavy burden to carry, Sarah. It creates a constant undercurrent of anxiety that saps your energy.
You're right. The unknown has been taking up a significant amount of mental real estate lately.
Fear often masquerades as inconvenient. We tell ourselves we're too busy, but really, we're just apprehensive.
I've used every excuse in the book, deadlines, social commitments, even the weather to justify the delay.
And in doing so, you've allowed a minor issue to potentially evolve into something more demanding of your time.
That's the irony of it, isn't it? By trying to save time, I've likely doubled the recovery period I'll eventually need.
It's a very common human paradox. We are remarkably good at sabotaging our own long-term interests for short-term ease.
Why do we do that? Why is it so difficult to prioritize the very vessel that allows us to live our lives?
Perhaps because we view our bodies as machines that should simply function without our intervention.
I certainly treated mine that way. I expected it to perform regardless of the fuel or rest I provided.
Even the most sophisticated machinery requires maintenance, and occasionally a total shutdown for repairs.
I think I'm currently at the total shutdown stage, or at least very close to it.
Let's see what the physical examination tells us. I'm going to listen to your lungs now.
I'll try to breathe normally, though even that feels like a conscious effort at the moment.
Take a deep breath in and hold it for a second. Now exhale slowly.
Did you hear that? That slight rattling sound at the end of the breath?
I did. It's a very specific sound that points towards some inflammation in the bronchial tubes.
So it's not just a bit of a cough or a reaction to the dusty office air?
No, Sarah. There is a definite physiological presence there that requires our intervention.
It's strange, but hearing you say that actually makes me feel a wave of relief.
Because the theoretical problem is now a physical reality with a pathway to resolution.
Exactly. I'm not imagining it, and I'm not just being weak.
Based on what I'm hearing and your description of the fatigue, I believe you have acute bronchitis.
Bronchitis? It sounds so much more serious than I was prepared for.
It is an inflammation of the lining of your bronchial tubes, which carry air to and from your lungs.
Is it something that requires a hospital stay, or can I manage this from my own sofa?
It's manageable at home, but only if you are willing to commit to absolute, non-negotiable rest.
Non-negotiable is a word I'm not very familiar with in my professional life.
You'll need to become familiar with it. Your body is currently fighting an infection that is winning the battle.
And if I try to push through it? If I try to work from bed?
Then you risk this developing into pneumonia, which is a much more perilous and complicated territory.
That's a sobering thought. I suppose my deadlines aren't worth a stay in the respiratory ward.
Nothing is worth that, Sarah. I'm going to prescribe a course of antibiotics and a specialized inhaler.
An inhaler? I've never used one before. Does that mean I have asthma now?
Not necessarily. It's a temporary measure to dilate your airways and make breathing less of a struggle.
It feels like I'm finally admitting defeat. I'm officially a sick person.
You are a person who is healing. There is no defeat in responding to the needs of your own biology.
I appreciate the way you reframe everything. It makes the vulnerability feel much more manageable.
Vulnerability is not a sign of weakness. It is a fundamental part of being a sentient, biological being.
I think I've spent too much time trying to be a person who never needs help from anyone.
Independence is a virtue, but taken to the extreme, it becomes a lonely and dangerous isolation.
I feel like I've had a psychological breakthrough as well as a medical diagnosis today.
The two are often inextricably linked. When the mind is under pressure, the body often pays the price.
I'm going to take the rest of the week off. I'll send the emails as soon as I leave this room.
I would prefer you didn't send any emails. I want you to go home, hydrate, and disconnect entirely.
You're a very strict taskmaster, doctor. but I suspect you're exactly what I need right now.
I'm simply your advocate in a world that doesn't always value your well-being.
I feel significantly lighter now than I did when I was struggling with that digital form in the lobby.
That's the power of clarity. The unknown is always heavier than the truth.
I'm actually looking forward to the quiet. I haven't been truly still in months.
Use that stillness to listen to what your body is trying to tell you in the future.
I'll try to be a more attentive listener. No more waiting 10 days for a cough to fix itself.
I hope so. Prevention and early intervention are far less taxing than a full recovery from exhaustion.
I'll stop by the pharmacy on my way out. The inhaler and the antibiotics, right?
Yes. The instructions are very straightforward. Take the full course even if you feel better in 48 hours.
I promise I won't play doctor and decide I'm cured halfway through the week.
I'll hold you to that. I've seen too many relapses caused by premature returns to work.
You've been remarkably patient with my philosophical diversions today.
It's been a pleasure, Sarah. It's rare to have such an introspective patient in a walk-in clinic.
Well, I suppose if I'm going to be unwell, I might as well gain some intellectual insight from the experience.
A very sea-level approach to illness, I must say.
I'll take that as a compliment. Thank you, doctor, for your time and your empathy.
You're very welcome. Take care of yourself, and please don't be a stranger if the symptoms persist.
I won't. I think I've officially retired from the wait-and-see club.
I'm glad to hear it. Now, go home and get some much-deserved rest.
I'm on my way. Goodbye, doctor.
Goodbye, Sarah. Feel better, son.
I think I'm already on the right track.